This amazing guest today, Daniel Gomez, share about his new book that you'll love to get to know of. And before we get him on the show, everyone, I just really want you to be inspired by this amazing new product called Holy Hydrogen that will unbelievably heal the cells of your body and just bring more life into your system and wellness. So we'd love for you to hear this message from Holy Hydrogen. And when you order this product, make sure you mention Braveheart so you can get $100 off, and they are offering payment plans now. So a message from Holy Hydrogen. Thank you for joining us.
Hydrogen is used by health professionals as a powerful antioxidant and the #1 tool to fight inflammation. Studies show therapeutic potential in cancer, diabetes, digestive, and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. This is not medical advice, because I'm not your doctor, but if you have any health concerns, I strongly recommend that you learn more about hydrogen. Get educated at holyhydrogen.com and order the best hydrogen generator known to man. Use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Because hydrogen is the smallest molecule in existence, it can pass through the cell membrane and even the blood-brain barrier to clear out inflammation and free radical damage where other antioxidants just can't get to. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. Search their research library to see if hydrogen has a track record for helping a health concern you're dealing with. Make sure to use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
The Connection Show. Inspiring hope, health, healing. Connecting the dots of your story and transforming your life. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops. Live with Jill Reynolds.
Are you inspired enough? Stop spinning your wheels. The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. And that amazing saying comes from Daniel Gomez, who's our speaker and guest today. Welcome, Daniel.
Good morning, Jill. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I've been having it on my calendar for the last couple of weeks, and I'm excited to add some value and just share part of my story, right? I think so many times men, we have this false thing that we have to be machismo, right? We got to be tough. And I think those days are over. I think you really got to open up your heart, because I've noticed that when I open up my heart, a lot of men and women open up their hearts, Jill.
Well, we'd love to know more about you. So let's go on a journey to connect the dots of your story and take us back to little Daniel, what it was like growing up for you and things you've gone through in life.
Man, life has been just definitely a journey. You never realize where trust issues come from, Jill. But I'll tell you, they come from your childhood. If you have trust issues now as an adult, and by God's grace, I'm getting over them little by little, but I've had several trust issues along the way. And I think it's just when I was a kid, right? I remember the story of my mom just really being diagnosed with cancer when she had breast cancer. I was probably about 6 or 7. And they really thought she was going to not make it like that first year. And by God's grace, she lived another 4 years, but it was just, we were at hospitals all the time. We were at doctor's offices all the time. And I'll never forget the day when I was 10 years old, and it was just weird because no one ever came over to our house. And all of a sudden it was a weekday and everybody was at our house. And they ended up taking him in my aunt's house and to break the news that my mom had passed. And I think then I didn't see it. They were trying to protect me. But I think like after that, I was upset because just the way it kind of went, it wasn't a bad thing, but the way I interpreted the way things happened, because I was just so young, I didn't trust anybody, because I said, man, people can't even tell me that my mom's passed away. Why do we got to drive an hour later, 2 hours later for them to tell me?
Well, and let's pause there for just a moment for the listeners out there. So if anyone's out there that's hearing this and hearing what Daniel just said, many of us, I know for myself, Daniel, I have a 6 and 8 and a 10-year-old grandchild. And so when I hear your story, the moment I hear it, I connect the dots of those little ones. So if you have little ones at home, just envision Daniel being only 10 years old and what that must have felt like for a little 10-year-old. Plus, his mom was sick for 4 years. So take it back to being 6 years old and always that uncertainty, waiting and not ever knowing when your shoe's going to drop off, right, Daniel?
Yeah, well, the thing when that happens to you and you live it, and then as you get older, you don't see it, but now you kind of become too self-reliant. It's like that. I believe that's the main cause when I do a lot of coaching with my business clients, and especially men, the deep issues is they want to do everything themselves because they don't trust anybody. But what does that root from? And for me, as I was growing up, and then as by God's grace, as I started in the automotive industry when I was in my mid-20s, it's like it was just, I can do it, right? That word I, whenever you hear anybody say the word I, they have issues there. And really listen to it. And then I listened to myself. I'm like, okay. And then I didn't really pay attention. And then one time, somebody told me, dude, like, why do you say I all the time? And I wasn't in personal development back then. I was young. So I don't know, man. I'm just used to doing, right? Forgive me, but we're being honest. I'm just used to doing shit on my own, right? Like, I can't depend on anybody. And my dad was cool. I love my dad. My dad was definitely did the best that he could. But after my mom passed away, especially in the Mexican culture, we're just known. I mean, I'm just going to be honest, right? We're known for gossiping. We're known for just gossiping and complaining. If you talk to it, I'm just being real, right? Because we hear this. I just went to go visit one of my aunts because my grandpa passed away a couple of months ago. And I went to go visit my aunt. I just to go spend time with her, give her condolences because it was my mom's sister. And as soon as I get there, she starts gossiping or talking about how everybody's against her. And it's from a death, right? So instead of celebrating the death, it's like they start fighting with each other. And I remember now why, right? People say, you think you're better than us. No, I just don't like that bull, right? I don't want to be involved in those conversations. Yeah. And the reason I'm talking about this is because as my mom passed away, there was some division in our own home. And, my dad and my sister and my brother did the best that they could. But I remember this stuff, and you're just like, you look at it like as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, and you're like, there's things, it's not normal.
And there's one word I think that comes to mind as you're sharing this, Danielle, is the word triangulation. Triangulation is where, like you said, you've got one person over here gossiping and talking about here. And then they go over here and this person talks about these people over here. And before you know it, you're triangulated. It's like a strangulation. And it's like you're hearing this story, you're hearing this story. And it's like everybody's talking about each other.
Yeah. So it's like, I remember growing up in the south side of San Antonio, not that it's just the south side, but just that's where I grew up at. That's my point of reference. And I said, I need to get out of this area of town. And not that it's a bad town, but my circle within my circle in the south side, I said, my kids, by God's grace, just as I was growing in the automotive industry, and the automotive industry really opened up so many things for me. And it really took us to another level of living. And I learned business. I learned that. But then as I was running these multi-million-dollar corporations and leaderships, the kid Daniel would come out. And I think so many of us as adults, men and women, we don't realize that the decisions that we make today are based on the kid that we were 20, 40 years ago. And it's proven, because one thing that I don't like that a lot of coaches say is, oh, well, just erase it. Just let it go. It's like that program, that file is in your mind. Unless the Holy Spirit, by God's grace, erases that memory, it's there and something can trigger it. So when you're going through these times of pressure, when I was growing in the automotive industry and God was ascending me there, it's like all these things would happen. But now I look back, I'm like, man, I had a lot of stuff that I was dealing with. I never dealt with it though. I just coped with it. So I wondered, I think it came to a full head when I was 18 years old, and we had moved around. We would move around like every I'm going to circle back to my story. So we'll move around every year and a half, 2 years. And then my senior year, prior to that, when I had gone to San Marcos with my dad, I fell in love with this girl, right? And I was in love with her. And she was my high school sweetheart. And people tell you, oh, it's just puppy love. Like, bullshit. I loved her, right? Because it's like, I cried. Like, it wasn't puppy love. And it's just, but it broke my heart. And I think after that, after losing my mom and going through this teenage love, romance, whatever you want to call it, for 5 years, it's like, I didn't care by the time I was a senior. Every girlfriend that I had, I didn't give a care. I didn't give a shit, right? I don't say it in a mean way, but that's the way I felt that time, right? Because no matter what you say at night, no matter how many promises you make, they break. And so by the time I was a senior, I didn't care. I was like running over everybody and heartless. And then it was just came at a point. I wasn't stoned, I wasn't drunk, but that's when I shot myself and tried to take my life. And it just really, things didn't get better after that. And the reason I say that is because now I'm alive, and now I got this scar from the top of my abdominal to my lower midsection, and now I'm reminded of the dumbass mistake that I made, right? And I'm speaking this way because that's the way I felt when I was that person. But now, as I lived, I was wondering, why did I live? Why did Daniel Gomez live? And little did I know that it's to be, right? DG inspires our branding, our business, to help people go through these things. And sometimes we wonder why we're on the other side of that tragedy, that circumstance in our life. And if God's not done with you yet, and by his grace alone, I mean, from the time I shot myself to the time I got to the hospital, it was almost 4 hours. Why did I live? I always ask myself that. Now I'm not mad at myself. There was a point where God just kind of slapped me, right? He goes, will you stop looking at your scar as a bad thing? And I want you to see, when you look in the mirror and you see your scar, the scar of grace that kept you alive. Because you should be dead.
So you're at your house. Thank you for that. You're at your house and you're in despair, and so you shoot yourself. Who found you, or how did you get to the hospital?
Well, actually, we had gone out. It was a Sunday night, and I remember that because the next day was President's Day, or Martin Luther King Day, one of the days. I believe it was in January, February. And we were out there with some friends, and I was dating this girl, and we got into a big argument. And like I said, I didn't care, right? I mean, I just didn't care. And I think that something happened, and it just triggered me. And it wasn't her, it was just me that I just said, like, man, this sucks, right? It just, and it just like, because how can I say it, right? You don't, at that moment, I didn't take time to self-reflect and look at my life. I always carried a gun when I was a senior. It's just what I did, and just, so in that day, I just had my gun with me, and I just asked myself, is it really worth living? So I shot myself. And
so were you by yourself in the car, or
No, I was with her. There was a group of us. We were in two different cars, and we're just hanging out. And so instead of her taking me to the hospital, she took me back to my house. And my sister's like freaking out, like, because I'm in the car, and they called the ambulance. So that's where it took 4 hours, because they drove me back home instead of driving me to the hospital. Mm-hmm. Like I said, God's hand was all over this, because I should have been dead. And then while I was in the hospital, there's a term called NPO. If you're a nurse or a doctor, you understand what NPO is. That means you don't eat nothing. That means if you're in hospital and they tell you, Jill, you're NPO, that means you can't eat anything, you can't drink anything, not even water. So I was NPO for 90 days. Well, after being there for a month, all they would do was take little ice chips. You could kind of put them on your lips, and my lips were all chapped and dried. And they were feeding me through a G tube, and that's how I was eating. It was a G tube that it was like just kind of like a milkshake that they're giving you through a tube. But I remember I woke up one night, and I don't even know what time it was, but it was past midnight, and I was just so thirsty. And I said, man, I just got up and went for a walk. I came around the corner and I saw this gold mine of a water fountain. I'm 18 years old, and man, do I gulp away. I'm just like screw it, I'm thirsty. Like, I hadn't drank water in 30 days. Like, think about it. So I'm just like gulping away, and then next thing you know, I just remember I woke up and I'm in an ICU again, and there's lights on me, doctors on me, and I just remember my brother Fabian was there at the time, and he's like, "Hey, like, you're alive," because I passed out. I guess I don't know what happened, but something happened. But I just remember seeing my brother on one side and my dad on the other. I'm like, where am I at? I was in the ICU. And I almost died again because I was NPO. You're not supposed to, right? My digestive system could not handle water. And I drank about, I don't know, 16 ounces of water, which was way too much. And I almost died again. So it's been a journey.
Wow. Well, I'm still, my brain is back at that scene of the shooting with this girl. The trauma that girl must have gone through afterwards, I can't even imagine being with you and seeing you, and then you're, trying to get you to the hospital. Yes. Do you want to share anything, what took place on that, or did you ever talk to her after that?
No, she went and visited me a couple of times at the hospital, and we talked, but I think, like anybody else, right? When somebody gets sick or somebody dies, right? It's like they visit you right away. For the first month, you're there, and then just life happens, and it's like I never played the victim. I never really played the victim, to be honest with you. But I never heard from her. She ended up getting married, and right, it was cool. I mean, I don't know if I loved her or not, but I was just kind of going through a phase just because of what life had dealt me. And I think when I met my wife, Madi, now I was 20 years old, and Madi came in my life at the right time because God knew I needed somebody, right, that I could love. And I think after I graduated, I got accepted to Texas UT in Austin, the Longhorns, and I didn't want to go. Part of it was a financial thing, and then part of it was I said, do I really want to go to college, right? Like, it's just, I wasn't in that capacity to want to do that. And of course we could have gotten school loans or whatever, but I just said, you know what? I don't think I want to go to college. Like, I'm not ready for it right now. So I just kind of just worked here in San Antonio, and by God's grace, I plugged into an amazing corporation. They schooled me. They trained me from the bottom. I ended up running it. I was there for 10 years, called Plant Interscapes. They changed the name since then. But they were Christian owners, and I think that's when really God started planting seeds in my life. And I started there when I was 19. So when I met my wife, I had already been there like a year and a half, and I was blossoming. Right? I went from the lone totem-pole to became a team leader, and eventually I ran the organization for the Senate. And they were beautiful people, but they were Christian, and they made us read. Right? I never really read a book, and they would make us read in leadership a book, and it was good. Right? I was like, So when I met Madi, I was just missing that piece of I think I was ready, right? I think by that time, after this happened when I shot myself, then I really didn't care about anybody, right? And then I dated this girl, and we lived together, and it was just like, I can honestly say I probably just used her because I just needed, right? It was just an outlet. And I just finally got tired I wasn't happy, and I just said, you know what, like, this isn't going to work. And that's when Madi came into my life, and we just, like, she was a missing piece that I just fell in love with her, like, instantaneously. It sounds childish, like a story, but when me and Madi hung out, it's like, that's the girl for me. Like, I felt it, I knew it, and we've been together, married. We've been together going on 27, 28 years. We've been married 25 years. We celebrated 25 years here in August, and by no means has it been a cakewalk, but right, who you love, you fight for that. So I call her my Chiquita Banana because she's 4'11".
Now, do you guys have children, Daniel?
Yeah, our baby boy's going to graduate. I call him my little King, Julian. I call him King Julian. He's going to graduate here December 10th of this year. He'll get his bachelor's at Texas State University. Very proud of him. My daughter just graduated in May with her master's, and my kids are doing stuff that I never did, right? And I'm just grateful that the journey God's given me on when we started our business. It really, right? I don't, right? Not that I don't believe in school. I think college helps you become a people person. It helps you meet connections that are going to help you later. It does make you grow as a human being because it's a different level of schooling. But I don't truly believe it teaches you exactly what you need to know sometimes. Well, right? And I'm not.
And there's street knowledge is as important as schooling, and you had street knowledge. I'm one of those too, Daniels, that, my life was in the 70s, so I hitchhiked around the United States. So my street knowledge was the road, and I learned how to survive. And
the thing is this, is that they don't teach you business in business school at college. They don't. I was listening to this great, one of the great leaders of all time, Miles Monroe, and he was talking about how he walked into this leadership development class for business, and he's there, and the professor, nothing against professors, but this professor came in and wearing flip-flops, wearing a kind of a beach attire, and he goes, why? He goes, well, we're going to teach you today, ladies and gentlemen. The professor said this, how to become a millionaire. And Miles Monroe looked at him and said, sir, with all due respect, are you a millionaire? In his Jamaican and in his accent, right? And the teacher goes, what? Oh, sir, I'm just wondering, are you a millionaire? He got offensive about it, but then he asked the question. So then another student said, well, sir, all right. Now it was like the pressure was, and he said, no. And he goes, okay, thank you, sir. He said he left the classroom, dropped the class. He goes, how is somebody going to teach me how to be a millionaire or not? But the reason I bring that up, because it was a business class. And he goes, I definitely resonated with the story that Miles was sharing, because he goes, how is someone going to teach me how to be a millionaire if they're not there? You go, you don't learn business in a classroom, you learn business in business.
So I just got to stop and ask you. So are you a millionaire, Daniel?
Yes.
I had to ask you that.
Yes.
I think that's a good transition, because when you're saying that and I see your sign behind you, it's true. Like, how can I teach somebody how to have hope, health, and healing in their life if I've never experienced hope, health, and healing in my life? And, and how can you talk about trust if you've never experienced the loss of trust and then the gaining of trust? You just, if you don't have that life experience, how can you even go there? So let's take one step backwards, because I love to take my video camera. And let's take you back to that company where the owners were Christian and they had you read a book and you met your amazing wife. And where then did God come into your life, and when did you start experiencing hope, health, and healing from that point?
Well, I think I finally found a home where I worked. It was work, but it was more a family to me, because like we did a lot. And not looking back, I'm like, that was a perfect corporation. Really, they fed us. We had get-togethers as a company. They took us on retreats to Galveston, and they would always really care for me. And I was like, it was weird. It was just like, wow. And I think that's why I really felt God's love through Karen Seneth was I hated her. And I'm going to tell you why. Because my whole life I was called Danny Gomez. My whole life I was Danny Gomez. And that's where God did the shift in my identity. And I would tell her name was Karen, not Karen, but she spelled it kind of similar. I said, Karen, my name is not Daniel, it's Danny. Okay, Daniel. And it would upset me. It would really, right? Because I was 19 years old. But now, the more time I spend, I said, you know what? I'm going to stop fighting with this lady. Like, not that I fought with her, but I'm like, woman, my name is Danny Gomez, like Danny Zuko from Greece. And she would laugh and, okay, Daniel, right? She goes, God just tells me to call you Daniel. So when I met my wife, a year and a half later, right after I've been there, I gave up on the fight. Everybody started knowing me as Daniel. I was introducing myself as Daniel Gomez, and people I know when people know me from life, because they'll call me Danny, and I know them from my childhood, right, from 19 and before. When people call me Daniel, they know me as an adult. And right, the beautiful thing is I've grown. Less and less people call me Danny, because they know that, right, I'm Daniel. So as that happened, God really had his hand. I grew up in the company there, but we read books, and then we went to this men's meeting with the owner, and Max Lucado, the world famous pastor, was there. I didn't know who he was. We're there. There's about 30 guys, 30 men, and I'm like, I was like, wow, interesting. And I'm like, I know that guy, right? Like, he's famous. He's a famous pastor, like Max Lucado. Like, wow. So I broke bread. I didn't know who the heck he was at the time, but then God started opening up my vision. He took me from that South Side mentality that I call it to now. I plant interscapes, right? We were selling plants for $10,000 with palm trees, which we're selling. But I mean, you talk about exotic plants, rafus palms. You talk about atriums inside mansions here in San Antonio. I went to George Strait's house. I went to David Robinson's house. I was inside their house, like, and I was 19, 20. I was like, this is badass. So God expanded my vision. He opened up my capacity to receive. I'd go in the back and I would see this resort of a pool. I was like, wow. I never forget when David Robinson drove up in his sports car. I'm like, man, it hit me. Like, it's like, man. So it opened me up to believe what was possible through God. And one thing about David Robinson, you weren't allowed to talk to him because, of course, it was his house. But I remember one time I just said, man, we were doing our job, and I said, it would be awesome to have David Robinson's autograph. And he heard. He goes, what do you got to sign, young man? He's like, I got a napkin. He signed a napkin for the scripture. So, like, right, every time David Robinson signs something, he puts a scripture. So it just opened me up to godly men. So I think that's where I didn't see it. I wasn't a Christian by no means at that point, but the seed had been planted inside my heart and soul.
So at the moment that you received Christ, what was going on when you actually, do you have a moment in time where you said, I'm ready to surrender?
Oh yeah, my dad was dying. They gave my dad a month to live.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
They gave my dad a month to live.
Oh, so
my dad had been sick. I hadn't seen my dad in about 3 months, but my grandma called me from San Marcos, which is about an hour away from San Antonio. And she's like, mijo, your dad's not good. Like, I don't know what's wrong with him, and he doesn't want to go to the doctor. And my dad, right, out of all my dad's kids, he listens to me, right? I mean, I'm his baby. And I think that's why a lot of my brothers and sisters were just resentful towards me, because my dad was around for me. And I went over there and picked him up. And broke my heart because of the way he lived. Brought him back to San Antonio and I said, well, let's go to the hospital, right? University hospitals where you go when you don't have insurance. My dad didn't have insurance, and we were there all day and nothing was happening, and they couldn't find anything going on. And I said, well, something's wrong with him. I mean, he's lost 30 pounds. And this doctor at the shift, I think it was like that 11 o'clock shift hour, another doctor came in and was like, what's going on? I was like, sir, I don't know, man. My dad is not doing good. He has blood in his stool and they can't find nothing wrong with him. And right away, the doctor said, run this test. He told the lady there. And we were there at midnight, and they're like, we're going to have to admit Mr. Gomez. We need to run some more tests, but we'll give it to you in the morning. That following day, that's when they broke the news to us. And me and my dad just cried. I remember going outside. They had this big old flower bed in front of University Hospital. And I was just crying, right? I just remember saying, God, I don't know you, man. I believe there's a God. But if you help my dad, I'll serve you the rest of my life. Don't take my dad. And I remember going upstairs, and me and my dad were crying. And I told him, you're going to be okay, Dad. And by God's grace, he lived a year. He didn't live. They gave him 3 weeks. He lived a year. So I got to see the transformation. I got to spend my dad came to live with me, and that was my first journey in entrepreneurship. We opened up a piñata store, and me and my dad were together every day almost. And I really thought God was going to heal him. He was walking and doing everything on his own, driving around. And then about 10 months down the road, he just kind of went south, and God decided to take him. And I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. He was just a seed for our family. And that's when my life really changed dramatically. I think when my circle of people that I hung around with, and for 8 years, I just really served God, like nonstop. People make fun of me, keyed my car, call me a Bible thumper. And then after 8, 9 years, right, you kind of drift. I started growing in the automotive industry, and we'd still go to church, but I didn't realize how far my heart had come away from God. And when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, I knew what it was. Not that God made it happen, but I knew that what was happening in our lives, that it was God's way of saying, okay, are you going to come home now? Really come home? Because we had been going to church, right? I was going to church. One thing that the thing is this, is that Christian believers wonder why certain people prosper and certain people don't prosper, right? Or why is their business doing great? Or why is their life amazing? Or why does somebody have success and wealth and somebody doesn't? God doesn't discriminate his principles. It's right the same way that I have this pen, and I let it go, it falls. Why does it fall? Because it's a law. It's a law of gravity. So the law of gravity doesn't discriminate whether you're man or woman, but whether you're a pen, whether you're a piece of paper or book. And when you follow the principles of God, when you give, you receive. And I by God's grace, and I don't say this in a bragging way, but I've never missed a tithe since I was 26 years old. Mm-hmm. Never. Yeah. Because I knew in my heart, when I give, I plant a seed, I know the harvest comes. I believe that wholeheartedly. My wife thought I was crazy that we were giving money every 2 weeks to go to church. I was like, no, we're just giving it. And we prospered, right? We paid off our house in 10 years. We had wealth in our bank account. And, but I just didn't realize how much my heart had come away. And so when my wife she made a decision to have a double mastectomy, and then she got depressed on me. I don't want to say it was easier because we had some savings account. It was, at the time, it wasn't nearly what we have now, but we had a security blanket. But the thing with it, and the interesting thing about that, Joe, was God said, okay, are you going to trust in yourself, or are you going to trust in me? If you touch your money, you're trusting in you. And I can tell you, when we first started off our business, the first 2 years, I never touched it. I never touched it. I haven't touched it. God is my witness. We had what we had saved up, and I think we had, I've always kind of had a separate account of play money, right? I think we had I don't know, maybe $8,000 in play money when I started the business, and that's what we grew with. So everything that I have is because of God's grace. Mm-hmm. Everything I have, and then I just never. And you know what? The ironic thing that people don't realize is when you have that poor-minded, right? In the book, I talk about having a poor-minded financial inner economy, right? Because you have that poor-minded Black mentality. Even though I had a nest egg to say, I was still freaking out because my thinking wasn't the way it is now. Nearly not. I mean, a fraction of it was the way I think now.
Yeah, and what does it come right back to? Trust. Comes right back to that trust, like trusting in God for your provisions. Yeah. The circle comes all the way back to being that little 4 to 10-year-old child and trusting that God will provide for you. So with that,
well, I remember, right? Because Madi had her big surgery in November. That's when she had her double mastectomy, and then they found skin cancer, and it just really sucked the first November and December. And it was Christmas time, and she was down, and I just like, you know what, let's go buy some furniture. We didn't have no money. I go, let's just go look. So we just went, and I remember making it was like a $1,700 purchase. She really wanted some bar stools, right? She kept talking about the bar stools, and God says, buy her the bar stools. It's like, I'm not working, right? At the time I didn't work November, December, January. Our business started in January. And God says, will you buy the bar stools? So I put them on credit card because we've always had excellent credit by God's grace, but I just never used them. And my wife lit up, but I remember that night at 17, it was 1944. We bought a table and some bar stools, and it was like I was buying $1 million. It was like $1 million decision at that moment. That's how much weight it was on me. But I think that's when my faith really started growing and helped me get to where I am now.
And so your wife's been in remission this whole time now?
I don't say she's in remission. She's healed in Jesus' name.
Thank you. And
I don't believe in remission.
That's good. Your dad, did he have cancer as well?
Yeah, he ended up passing away. He had colon cancer, then it went to his liver. But going back to where I started my story, right? Mexican men are hard-headed and machismo, and he just didn't want to go to the doctor. And because of his pride, right? So if you're a man out there, whether you're Italian, Mexican, whatever you are, man, you need to go check yourself out, man. Especially, I mean, I just went 2 weeks ago, and it's not something you want to do. Actually, I'm lying. It was like 3 weeks ago now. But you just got to go check yourself. You got to go take care of yourself. And people just don't.
And you got to get your colonoscopies, guys. Even if you hate it, you got to get a colonoscopy. Anyway, well, I want to shift and show my audience your bio. So Daniel Gomez, global.com is Daniel's website where you could reach out to him and connect with Daniel. So Daniel, I see that you've got a new book out and you want to share a little bit, and then people, you can connect with Daniel on his website to find out more about all the stuff. But talk about your book a moment, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, God had me start a book last year, and I didn't finish it. It's The Makings of a Millionaire Mind, and Building a Life of Abundance and Wealth, God's Way. And it's really, my goal with this book is to give you the right attitude, the right heart, the right approach in becoming a millionaire God's way. So you don't self-implode, you don't self-destruct. I started writing this book last year in the summer, and I stopped. And then my editor, files got lost, and I said, you know what, maybe the book's just going the wrong way. It wasn't the book that we have today. So I just stopped and really put more thought process into it and really spent time with God and said, okay, look, like I didn't want to write the book. I think I self-sabotaged myself too, because there was a part of me that knew that when you talk about money, people aren't receptive a lot of times. So I didn't want to deal with the backlash. And then one day in November, the first week of November, my wife says, God says, are you going to finish your book or not? And I had to. We went to go speak January this year in Atlanta with John Maxwell, my good friend Ken Jocelyn, and some prominent speakers. We opened up. Ken, it was John Maxwell's keynote speaker. Then it was Jesse Eitler, the owner of the Falcons, of the Hawks, Dave Meltzer. All these are prominent, very successful speakers. And then the fifth guy up is Daniel Gomez. My assistant goes, are you nervous? I mean, I had been speaking already 4 years by this time. I said, yeah. She goes, well, you speak all the time. I'm like, I'm the keynote. I never follow John Maxwell. I never follow these people. I go, I'm a little nervous. Yeah. And I remember the guy just saying, shut up. I'm going to speak to you. I got on stage, and after we got off, we sold out of books. We sold out, and then we took like, I think 50 books. They sold quick. The Spirit of God moved. And then my assistant's like, what are we going to sell? Because it was a 2-day event. So we sold some other programs and some coaching that we had. But we had a mock-up of our book. I said, well, can you pre-sell it? She goes, yeah, we can pre-sell it. We sold. Now we had almost 100 total orders pre-sold, right? That day we sold like 40. Then with everything else we sold, now we're up to almost 100 pre-solds. Within that week of committing to it, I had to come back and finish the book. So The Makings of a Millionaire Mind it talks about, right? There's definitely the financial sphere of wealth, but there's 5 spheres, right? You got relational, you got health, you got your intellectual, your emotional, and then you got your spiritual, of course, which is a lot of spiritual stuff in here, and then you got your financial. So really, we're going to teach you how to become a millionaire God's way, where you're putting His principles, and a lot of it is just really going to help you become a better human being, right? Because to have more, you must become more. And we all know people that have wealth and that are just not happy. Well, when you do it God's way, you don't self-implode, you don't self-destruct. So go to our website's called themakingsofamillionairemind.com, right? The makings with an S of a millionairemind.com. Get our book, get our course, 27 powerful modules that's going to change your life. And because I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like when my son was born, that we had to sell our CDs because we couldn't even afford his milk. I know what it's like. And you have to change the way you are in the inside of your brain, your thinking, in order for your life to change on the outside. So when you read the book, when you take our course, Jill, it's not just something that I'm going to sell you to make $1. It's to the story we've gotten back because I can tell you it's anointed by the Holy Spirit. God starts convicting you and showing you what, because there's always, right? My guarantee is when you buy this book, I guarantee you're going to take away 2 golden nuggets. I guarantee you when you buy the course, you're going to have 5 or 6 videos out of the 27 that are radically going to change your life and significantly change your results. So we just got.
That's amazing. Well, I am definitely going to direct. My husband's the reader in our house, so I have this thing. Don't ask me, Daniel. I have a bookshelf with about 200 books, and on my bookshelf of 200 books, there may be 2 of them I've ever read from beginning to end, because I'm one of those people that I pick up a book and I start to read the first chapter, and then I get to the second chapter and I can't remember what I just read. And then I get frustrated after. So it's weird how my brain works. So whenever I need to learn something, I buy a book for my husband and he reads it. And then I'm one of those visuals. It's like, now show me what we need to do.
Yeah, yes.
So,
I'm with you there a little bit too. And I do a lot of audiobooks now. And so I agree with you. I'll read something and I'll highlight it and I'll study it. But I can relate because I had to be very intentional. I talk about being intentional in the book, The Makings of a Millionaire Mind, and I have to be, when I pick up a book, I have to be very intentional when I pick up a paperback book or a actual hard copy book. So it does. Well,
do you know how bad my reading is? I'm actually in a collaborative book with about 14 authors that was released as a #1 best-selling book about a year ago, and I haven't even read it yet. And I'm in the book. That's how bad I am. And anyway, Daniel, it's been just a blessing to get to know you. And thank you for sharing your heart on trust and love and connection and hope, health, and healing with us on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. And please, my gift to your audience, I want to give them a complimentary discovery session. So go to, I'll put it in, if you can put it in the comments.
Yeah, if you stay on the line, if you stay on when we're finished, I'll make sure I get that so I can include it on the recording. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today on the Connection Show. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jill, for having me. Thank you, everybody. God bless y'all.
Well, I hope you were just as encouraged as I was by this message from Daniel and the inspiration he shared about his dad and his family and his life. So before we end, I'd love to introduce you to an upcoming event. With the seasons changing and the weather is going to get colder, we're planning a connection getaway for men and women to Aruba. So I'd love to invite you and hope you could attend February 5th through the 11th. And this is an amazing Christmas gift to give to each other for a getaway to Aruba, to this beautiful villa. So join us now for this commercial so that you learn more about what the event's going to be like. Thank you so much. Join us for the Hope, Health, and Healing Aruba Connections Getaway for men and women, February 5th through the 11th, 2023. Are you overworked, stressed out, feeling exhausted? Is it time to spoil yourself? Breathe in life and relax at private villas in Aruba for 6 nights and 7 days. Renew your mind and body. Discover greater self-awareness. Join in connection, wellness, stillness, movement, enhance inner peace. Experience amazing beaches. Enjoy snorkeling, area attractions, shopping till you drop. dine at fabulous beachfront restaurants. Imagine releasing anxiety, reconnect with yourself, restore your soul, bring your friends, enjoy fresh and savory cooked meals, lasting memories. Join us now. Register today. Book your flight and getaway to Aruba, February 5th through the 11th, 2023. Register by going to braveheartworkshops.com. Pack now and see you on the island of Aruba. So you're ready to pack your bags and go to Aruba? I surely am. I can't wait. It's my favorite island. I love it there. It's so beautiful. Hey, I have one other event coming up that I'd love to share with you. For those of you that aren't familiar, the Reawaken America Tour has been traveling around the country this past year, and it's been so inspiring to see people get saved and get to know Jesus and God, and just the whole 10 years of the Reawaken event. And they have 2 more events scheduled on the books. One is to Branson, Missouri, to the mansion in Branson, Missouri. This is November the 4th and 5th. There's limited seats left. You must follow these directions in order to get your tickets. Request the tickets by clicking the tabs that you'll see on the website, timetofreeamerica.com. Fill out the form and text them. Someone will call you back. Now, make sure you let them know you heard about this event through our promo code Braveheart, so you can receive up to a 10% discount on any of the pricing that you select. So again, Branson is November 4th and 5th, and then they're going to Nashville, Tennessee on January 20th to 21st, and you can buy tickets for Nashville now as well using that promo code Braveheart. Make sure you mention Braveheart so that they know that we told you about the event. Thanks again for joining the Connection Show and listening in to Daniel Gomez. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today on the Connection Show, where we bring you stories that will transform your life. The Connection Show would appreciate your support. Please go to either our Patreon page or our PayPal Me Now link today. We love our podcast show guests and appreciate our listeners and YouTube subscribers. Please go to our YouTube channel called The Connection Show and Braveheart Workshops and subscribe now. Remember to click the gray bell in the All tab so you don't miss any upcoming episodes.